All right, guys, so we are going to start on our clay project, and I figured I'd make this video, make it a little bit easier on us. You're going to need a couple things. One, you're going to get slip. Your slip is going to be a mixture of clay and water, and it just really softens the clay up. This is going to be what you use kind of like glue to make sure that your pieces stick together. So it's easy to refill. You just take a little bit of clay and you just pour some water in your bowl that you get, and it's totally fine. You're also going to get a skewer. This skewer is going to help you draw stuff out, poke holes if you want it, add your designs. It's okay if this breaks. I have plenty of them. It's not a big deal. Now, you're either going to get a rolling pin or you're going to get a cup. You don't need this, but if you want to make something super flat and smooth, then you can use it. So this is optional. You're also going to get a white square. This is optional too, but if you want it to help you cut out a certain size, this is 5 inches by 5 inches. You're also going to get your own clay, and that's what we're going to start with today. So step number 1 for our project, we are going to take your clay. You're going to want to pinch off probably about handful size, and you're going to want to take it in your hands. You want to get it into a nice ball, and then if you want, you can smooth it out, but it doesn't really matter if you do this part or not. You just roll it in between your hands like this. So next step, we need to make a flat piece of clay for you to work on for your wall hanging. Now, like I said, you can use a rolling pin or a cup to kind of roll it, or you can use your hands. To use your hands, you're just going to take it and you are going to start flattening it out like this. Now, you don't want it too thick, because if it's too thick, it'll take forever to dry. But if it's too thin, it'll get too fragile. You can also put it down on your canvas board and you can beat it flat like this with your hand, and notice that I am doing it at an angle and it kind of stretches that out a little bit. I'm not pounding on the table like this, but I am just lightly going around and flattening it out, okay? You can also fold it or flip it over and do it on the other side too. That's totally up to you. And it's okay if it's got textures from your knuckles and things in there, because you're going to end up working on it later anyway and adding textures of your own. So I've already got one over here that I have finished, and this one I flattened out using my rolling pin, so that's why that one looks a little different. Next step, I'm going to take this piece of burlap. Now this burlap is a fabric and it's got some texture to it, and I want texture on my wall hanging. So I'm going to put it on here on top of my clay, and I'm going to start pressing down with my hand. Now you want to make sure you get good leverage. If you're sitting down, it's going to be hard to do this and put all your weight on it. But if you stand up and you press down with the palm of your hand, you can get all that nice texture into your clay. If you have a cup or a rolling pin, if you want to roll it like this, you can do that. That's totally your decision. And then when you peel it up, you want to make sure that you're doing it very carefully. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to start peeling, and you can see the texture from that burlap in that clay. See? So I'm going to set that off to the side. Now, if you use this piece of white paper, you can see my clay is not quite big enough for this white paper, so if I wanted to, I could trim this down. You would put it on top of your cardboard like this, use your skewer, and just trim it down to that nice square shape. You don't have to do a square shape. You can do any shape that you want. I am just going to freehand this. So I'm going to draw one straight line, put my clay off to the side. I'm gonna do another line. Well, it's kind of crooked, but that's okay. And then I'm gonna trim the top. And the bottom, and there we go. Now, what I am also going to do before I start adding any decoration or anything, I'm gonna very carefully pick my clay up, and I'm going to take my skewer so I can hang this. I'm going to poke some holes through my clay so I can put a piece of yarn or twine in it later, so I can actually hang it on the wall. because if you wait to do that when the clay is dry, it's going to be a little difficult to do. So I'm going to go ahead and make those holes a little bit bigger just in case. Okay, I'm going to put that back down on my board. Now, next we're going to make a letter, one of your initials. You can do your first name initial, your last name initial, it's up to you. I'm going to do a C because my first name is Christian. So I'm going to take some extra clay that I have. I'm going to pinch off about half of that. I'm going to do what's called rolling a coil. Now a coil, those of you that have played with Play-Doh or anything, a coil is just, it's a Play-Doh snake. But what happens is if you roll it like this, it's not going to get completely the same width. Parts of it are eventually going to become larger and parts of it are going to become smaller. So what you want to do when you roll a coil, you always want to roll away from you and spread your fingers out, because that you're spreading your fingers out is going to spread out that pressure that you're applying. And then when it gets long enough, you can put 2 hands in it. And this will ensure that your coil is the same width all the way. You don't have a part that's too small and a part that's too big. And you can go around and you can keep going and you can make your letter as big or as small as you want it to be. Since I'm doing a C, and this is my plaque right here, I don't want it to be too big. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to cut that down a little bit, and I'm going to cut off and trim off that excess. Now, you're not going to leave it as a coil. I mean, you can if you want, but I'm not going to. I'm going to flatten it out a little bit. So I'm just going to use my thumb. And I could actually probably make this a little smaller and not quite so thick, but it's okay. It's my art. Now the ends over here, I'm going to take my fingers and I'm just going to kind of clean those ends up, because this is your art and you want it to be the best it can be. And then if you have some bumpies, you can take your finger, you can start to put it in your slip, and you can start to smooth out your letter. See how that kind of gets rid of those textures and things that I don't want? All right. Next step, I'm going to add my letter to my plaque. So this is where the slip comes in extra importantly. You don't want to just put your clay on your plaque like this, because it's going to fall right off when it dries. So what you have to do, I'm going to take my skewer and I'm going to scratch some lines into the back of my letter. If you go into the gym and there's water on the floor or you have on socks, you're going to slide around on that floor, right? Because there's an attraction. So if you wear tennis shoes or you have grip on the bottom of your shoes, you're not going to slip. So that's what we're doing right here. We're scratching in letters, and then we're going to take our water and a little bit of our slip, which is our glue, and we're just going to apply it to the back. You don't have to put a lot of pressure on it when you do this. You just want to get enough on there so it sticks. You want it to be sticky. You're applying your glue. So then I'm going to pick this up. I'm going to flip it over. I'm going to put it on my plaque. And then you want to kind of give it a little wiggle so you know it's kind of sticking really good. You can also take your slip, if you have the really watery clay, see mine's not mixed that well, but you can take the really watery clay and you can go in and you can fill in the seam that is created when you attach to your base. But the problem when you do that is that you're covering up part of your texture. So that's the chance you're taking when you do that. But I'm okay with that. Okay, so I know my letter is nice and stuck. Now here comes the fun part, the extras. You can add whatever extras to your plaque that you want. As long as you get the holes in first, you get the texture on the base, if you want texture, because you might not. And then also your letter. So what I'm going to do now is, I think I'm going to add a fancy little frame made out of clay. And you're just going to do it the same way you want. If you want to add flat pieces, you can. If you want to add coils, you can. I think maybe I might add like a vine or something. A vine with some flowers. So I'm going to roll my coil. And hopefully your canvas board doesn't slide around as much as mine does. Okay, so then I'm just going to do the same thing that I've been doing. If you want, you can flip this over and attach it to the back so you don't see. But if you do that, you want to make sure you smooth this out. So because I know I'm going to add extra stuff, I'm just going to attach it to the front. If you want to do this part first and then add your letter when you're done, you can do that too. That is totally your decision. So I'm going to add my slip, add my clay. You want to make sure that it sticks. So make sure you're adding your slip where you need to. And then I'm going to kind of bring it over. And it's getting there. This is all, oh, see, I don't want to mess up my hole. And then I'm going to take some more extra clay, and I think I'm going to make some leaves. So your leaves can just be any shape you want them to be. Like I said, if you want to do something different, you can. You can also take your skewer and draw. So I'm going to put a leaf right here. Oh, gotta add my water, add some more. Get rid of that seam. If you want, you can take some of your slip and add it to the back here to make sure that it's nice and extra stuck, because nobody will see that part. And then I'm going to make a flower. I'm just going to make, it's a little too big. We're going to make the center of our flower. If you wanted to make all these pieces first and then attach them, that's cool. It's up to you. It's your art. You do what you want. Then I'll make some petals. So now that you're seeing how this works, I want to see what you can come up with. Be creative. Try and put some thought into what it is you want to make. And like I said, if you want to make all your pieces first and then attach them, that would be a good idea. It's totally your call. You can always put stuff down and then use your fingers and your slip to go in and kind of clean things up. I always like to do that before I finish up a clay project. Okay, so take your time, don't rush. And when we are done making our pieces, we will paint them. Okay, see you later, guys.